Okay, Math 3, Unit 9. This is Section 3, so it's going along with Worksheet 3. On some of your papers, it might say C. You can change that to a 3 so you can match it better. So we're talking about quadratic design problems. Quadratic is when you square something. Also, we know quadratics are dealing with parabolas, okay, when you have a squared term. Here we have a rectangular pen. It's made of 40 yards of fencing on 3 sides because the 4th side is a brick wall. So we just made our rectangle, but one of our sides is our brick wall, and we want to find the greatest possible area. So we know that 2 sides of the fencing will be the same, so I labeled those as X, and 1 side of the fencing will be Y, because that'll be a different dimension, right? A different length. And so these 2 are the same, this one is different. So if I were to add the perimeter of my fence, it's going to be 2x plus y equals 40 because we know there's a total of 40 yards of fencing. Okay, now how do we find the area of this? How do I find that area? What would I multiply? How do you find the area of a rectangle? Okay, so in this case, my area would be x times y. Do you guys agree with me? Okay, so I have 2 equations right now, which is good because when you have 2 equations, you can end up substituting in so that you only have 1 variable. So I'm going to solve this equation for y. So I subtract 2x to both sides, and I get y equals negative 2x plus 40. Are we good? Is everybody okay with what I did there? So now that I have y equals negative 2x plus 40, I can take this and substitute it in for y in this equation. And so I'm going to write substitute there. And so when I rewrite this now, my area is actually going to be x times negative 2x plus 40. So I'm going to stop there because I need to see if anybody has questions. So we all understand where all this information has come from. Okay, so we're going to distribute. Okay, x times negative 2x is negative 2x squared. X times 40 is 40x. In order to find your maximum area, we need to end up completing the square for this, okay? So, do you guys remember how to complete the square? Okay, so you don't want the negative 2 in front when you're completing the square, so we factor out a negative 2. And we get x squared, and when you divide this by negative 2 and this by negative 2, we end up getting a negative 20x. Good. And then to complete the square, remember we do a plus blank. And then because I have a negative 2 times a blank, we also need a positive 2 times the blank in order to balance it out. Okay, do you remember how to complete the square from this point? Good. Negative 20 divided by 2 is negative 10, and we square that, which makes... And so 100 goes into each of these blanks. And then we're going to write our area equation. So area ends up equaling negative 2. What goes in the parentheses? Good. X minus 10 squared. And then what is this? 2 times 100 is 200. Okay. So I want to show you 2 things now that we have this. We don't have to do any more math really. But what would be my x value? 10. X would be positive 10, right? If you set that equal to 0. So you go over here, x would equal 10, which means this x would equal 10. If these are both 10 and we know the whole perimeter is 40, how much is y going to be? 20. Okay? What is 10 times 20 for your area? 200. So the maximum area is 200, and that's yards squared. Now what I want you to notice is this 200 and this for your equation, this 200 are the same. So you actually don't have to plug stuff back in like I did. Your maximum area will always be this value here, which is the y of your parabola. Do you guys remember this? And so what's happening is that how this is working is that your like bottom value is your x values, like your dimensions, and when you're multiplying it, your area is your y value. And so whatever this is, that's going to give you your maximum area value. Okay? But you can see how this plugs in and gets you the same answer as well. Okay. Do we have questions? Okay. Example 2. This one's slightly different. But your homework problems are set up just the same way where you're going to get practice. Okay? A park is to be built. Not sure what happened there. That's supposed to be built. Okay? On a rectangular plot of land and be enclosed by a fence except for an entrance that is 6 meters wide along one of the sides. So we're drawing a rectangle. Okay? So we have this and there's a break for a gate which is 6 meters. Okay? Is everybody good with that? Yes? Okay. They're telling you that find the dimensions of the park with the greatest area if 138 meters of fencing is to be used. So we are going to label this just like we did the last one. So each of these sides will be x. Each of these sides I'm going to label as y, but then we'd end up needing to do what? Subtract 6. Exactly. And so we're going to write our equation for perimeter. Okay, so we always want to get 2 equations. You're going to have your perimeter equation and you're going to have your area equation. So this perimeter is 2x plus 2y minus 6 equals 138. So even though there's a break in the fence, the area doesn't change inside. You will still, for your area, multiply your length times your width, or your base times your height. And so for my area formula over here, area is still going to equal what? Which we're going to write as xy. We're going to do the same thing as we did on the last one, where we're going to solve for a variable so that we can substitute it in. So we're going to solve for y again. Okay, so what will I do to solve for y? What would I do first? Good, add 6. 2x plus 2y equals, and 138 plus 6 is 144. In order to get y by itself, subtract 2x to both sides. 2y equals, and I'm going to write this as negative 2x plus 144. Am I going too fast? Yeah. Okay, tell me when you're caught up. So right now, does everybody understand all I'm doing is solving the perimeter formula for y so that I can substitute it in and only have one variable? Okay, so what will I do next? Good. So when I divide by 2, it works out nice because all of these can divide by 2. And I get y equals negative x plus, and 144 divided by 2 is 72. Good. Do we have questions so far? Okay, who remembers what I do next now? Very good. We take this and we are substituting it in for y. So that means I have x times negative x plus 72. So instead of writing y, since we know y equals negative x plus 72, I'm able to substitute that in. Then we distribute, and we're going to complete the square again. So we distribute the x through. What is x times negative x? Negative x squared. And then x times 72 is 72x. Okay? Now we're going to complete the square. Are you ready? Tell me when you're ready. Okay, I'm going to start by taking out a negative, and I get x squared minus 72x plus blank. Okay? Because I'm going to complete the square. And so I have a minus times a blank, so I also will need a positive times the blank. Okay, just like in the previous equation, we had a negative 2 times the blank, so we had a positive 2 times the blank on the outside. Okay, now to solve here, we're going to go negative 72 divided by 2, which is negative 36, and we square negative 36, and that equals 1296. So this right here is 1296, and this is 1296. When you write your area equation now, I have negative, and what's going to be my square? X minus 36 squared, good, plus 1296. Because remember, it's always your half number, and since it was negative 72 divided by 2, my half was actually a negative 36. And so guess what the maximum area is? Good, max area is 1,296 meters squared. Now, just to show you again, and you don't have to do this in your homework or anything, like once you get that answer, you are fine. But this is telling me if I were to set this equal to 0, that x equals 36. Okay? Which means that this would also be 36. So if you were to plug this in here, we could find y. So if I just use this equation, 2 times 36 plus 2y minus 6 equals 138. And I solve, I add 6 to both sides. 2 times 36 is 72 plus 2y equals 144. I subtract 72. And again, you don't have to do this. 2y equals 72. We divide by 2, and I get y equals 36. If you were to multiply in your calculator right now and go 36 times 36, guess what the answer is? 1,296. Okay? So, you don't have to do this stuff in green. I just wanted to show you how it works. Okay? Are we good? Questions? So a square gives you your best area. So making it a square is usually your best bet. Yeah, so we don't know. So we're just drawing an idea of it. Okay? All right. Can I move on to the next? Okay. And to be honest, just so you know, I think this is the toughest part. This one. Okay. So moving on to the next problem. Okay, so the revenue made by selling iPods at price P can be modeled by this equation. So they've given us the equation. It wants us to find what price will maximize the company's revenue and what is the maximum revenue. This is a quadratic formula. Okay, what happens is when you are selling things, okay, what happens is at the beginning you don't make anything, and then you have a max price or a max amount that you end up making, and then depending, sometimes it will end up going back down. Okay, whenever you have a square term, it's making a parabola. So what's happening is we're trying to find the vertex. We're trying to find that maximum amount. Okay, also on here, this is your price, okay, and your y, this is your revenue. So if you find your vertex, you're finding the point where the price is the best for the most amount of money you can make. Okay? So just like we did previously, we are going to complete the square. When you complete the square, we're able to find our vertex, which gives us our maximum price and our maximum revenue. Okay? So R equals, we're going to factor out a negative 3 over 2. Okay? When I do that, I get P squared plus, I have to divide 300 by negative 3 over 2, because when we're factoring out, we're dividing. If I write it like this, hopefully it'll make sense to you, but 300 divided by negative 3 over 2. What do I do to solve that? Good. We actually go 300 times negative 2/3. Do you guys see that? And then here, the 3's cancel and you get 100. And so 100 times negative 2 makes negative 200. So this is actually going to be a minus 200 plus blank. And then what's going to go over here? What's going to go on the outside of the parenthesis? Plus 3 over 2 times my blank. Because if I have a minus 3 over 2 times the blank, in order to make it balanced, we have to have the opposite, plus 3 over 2 times blank. How do I complete the square? Good. Negative 200 divided by 2 is negative 100, and when I square it, I get, yes, 10,000. So this is 10,000, and this is also 10,000. Wait. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Are we good? Okay. Now how do I write my equation? It'll be P what? Minus 100 squared. Now, when you multiply this, 2 goes into 10,000 how many times? 5,000 times. And we go 5,000 times 3, which makes 15,000. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay. So it says, what price will make the company's maximum revenue? See how this is P? That's your price. If you set that equal to 0, what would be your maximum price? $100. Okay, your maximum revenue is the number here at the end. If you were to plug in values, you'd solve when this is 100 and you'd end up getting 15,000. So your maximum revenue is 15,000. Do we have any questions? Okay. Yes. Because you're dividing by this number, so normally if I take out a 2, I take 300 divided by 2. So we're dividing by what I'm taking out, which is negative 3 over 2. So I wrote it this way, 300 divided by negative 3 over 2, so we could see that it's the change to multiplication, flip the sign. What? Say that again? Kind of. However you want to think about it. But when you're factoring out a fraction, you're really multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay. All right, this next one is slightly different. The easiest way is to actually just write out the work. Okay? And then the last two kind of go back to what this was doing. So it says, a club sells t-shirts to raise money. They will sell 80 t-shirts if they sell them for $8. So I'm going to write this as 80T. I'm selling 80 t-shirts. And if I sell 80 t-shirts, they're saying I can sell them for $8 each. So 80 times 8 makes $640. Okay? Then it says for every $2 increase, okay, they sell 8 fewer shirts. So going down on this right here, we can add $2 to our cost, because right here this is our cost. And we would subtract subtract 8 from this number. Okay? So what's going to happen is I'm going to try to explain this better because I feel like right now this is confusing. Okay. So they said if I add $2 to my cost, so what would be my next cost? $10, right? Add $2 to my cost, I'm going to sell 8 fewer t-shirts. So that means that I'd only sell how many t-shirts? 72 t-shirts. And so that means we'd go 72 times 10, which is 720, which is more money, right? So who cares that we're selling less t-shirts? I'm making more money, which ultimately I want to make the most money. Okay, so let's do the next one. So again, if I add $2 more, this is now going to be $12, but again, 8 fewer t-shirts, and so 72 minus 8 is 64. So I'm going to sell 64 t-shirts, and 64 times 12 is 768. Still more money, right? So let's try again. Let's try to sell it for $2 more, which would make that $14. And 64 minus 8 is how much? 56 t-shirts. 56 times 14 is how much? 784. Still more money. Okay, so let's go again. We get $16, but 56 minus 8 is 48 t-shirts. So we go 48 times 16, and if you plug that into your calculator, you get 768. So right there, I'm going to stop because now my price is going down. So this is my maximum. Okay, and so it says find the price the club should sell the t-shirts to maximize the revenue. So what price is there? So my answer is $14. Okay, questions? All right, we're gonna move on. 2 more questions. We're done. Almost. Okay. So Kiana is standing on the ground and throws a tennis ball vertically upward with initial speed of 112 feet per second. When she does that, it gives the height of the tennis ball as that equation. So this is Kiana. She's right here. She's green. She's standing there. She throws the tennis ball. Whatever goes up must come down, okay? There is a point where it reaches a maximum height. Do you guys agree? In order to get that maximum height, what am I going to have to do? Write an equation. You want to complete the square. You want to find the vertex of that parabola, okay? So we're going to do the same thing as we've done before, but I'm going to end up rewriting that because we want our squared first, and we want to factor out the negative 16 to complete the square. So h equals, I'm going to write this as negative 16 parentheses t squared. So I'm writing that in the front. That means I have to divide 112 by negative 16. What is 112 divided by negative 16? Good. It's negative 7t. Okay? Are we okay with how I got that information there? So I rewrote this as negative 16t squared plus 112t. I'm factoring out the negative 16. I get a positive t squared. When I take 112 divided by negative 16, I get negative 7t. And then I'm going to go plus a blank. Since I have negative 16 times a blank, I need a positive 16 times the blank. Josh and Brandon, you guys got all this? That's why you're not paying attention. Okay. So, now what? What do I do to complete the square? Negative 7 divided by 2. Let's go ahead and just change that to a decimal, okay? That makes negative 3.5. You square negative 3.5, and it makes 12.25. So 12.25, 12.25. So when I'm writing this equation, we have h equals negative 16. My square is going to be, good, t minus 3.5 squared. And then we multiply 16 times 12.25, and that equals 196. Do you guys agree? Okay. So, what does this information tell us? First of all, just so you know, this is your time that's going this way, which is really seconds. Along the side, this is when she's throwing it up. This is your height. Okay? So, if this is your vertex, you have an ordered pair there right now that we know, and that ordered pair is 3.5, 196. So, how long does it take the ball to reach the maximum height? What is my time? Good. 3.5 seconds is correct. When does the ball hit the ground? So, with the parabola, remember they're symmetrical. So, however long it takes to go up, guess what? Same amount of time for it to hit the ground. So, that means if you go 3.5 to get here, when you get here, what will it be? 7. Good. 7 seconds is correct. 3.5 plus 3.5 is 7. And what is the maximum height? 196 feet, right? Yes. Okay. Questions? All right. Last question. Adrian throws a frisbee into the air from a building that is 190 feet tall. So what that means is, you know, this is your height, correct? But Adrian, he is up here at 99 feet. So he's on the balcony and he's throwing it from the balcony. So what happens is this like ends up going up like this. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? So he's starting off the ground. He's not starting at 0. That is why you have this plus 99 at the end, because he has shifted himself up off the ground. Okay? So we are going to solve this the same way. Okay? So we're going to go h equals, and what will I do? Take out a -3, and we have t squared what? Minus 8t, but we're still going to do our plus blank. Okay, remember the 99 is going to go on the outside, so you have plus 99. But since I have -3 times the blank, I need a +3 times the blank. Right, Joseph? Okay, how do I complete the square? -8 divided by 2 is -4, and -4 squared is 16. Okay? So when I write my equation now, h equals -3, what goes in my square? Good. T minus 4 squared. Now I have to simplify all this. So I have 99 plus, and 3 times 16 is 48, and 99 plus 48 is 147. So this is my equation. Based on that, it says, what is the frisbee's maximum height? 147 feet. Okay, and remember down here, this was time. I didn't label that. How many seconds does it take to reach that maximum height? The answer is 4 seconds. Now, this is where it's different, because it took 4 seconds for it to get to this height. But because he started higher, do you see how it's going to end up taking longer for this one to hit the ground? Okay? You would find that by factoring your original equation. Now, I wanted to show you guys this, but you're not going to have any questions on this, okay? If you want to write this down, you can, but it's not in your homework or anything, okay? So in order to find where it hits the ground, you know a parabola, you're going to have 2 points. The point where it hits the ground is when your x value equals 0. So there's like basically going to be a negative value when it hits 0 and then a positive value. You find that by factoring that original equation. And so I'd have -3 t squared minus 8t, and then when I divide 99 by -3, I get a minus 30, oh no, not a minus. No, it is a minus, minus 33. I factor that. In order to get -8, I get what numbers multiplied to be -33 and add to be -8? -11 and a +3. And when you set those equal to 0, you get 11 and -3. Well, I don't want -3 seconds. So therefore, it would take 11 seconds in order for it to hit the ground. But again, you don't need to know that part.
Where did you get 33?
Right here, the original equation is where I got this from. And so when I factored out negative 399 divided by negative 3 makes negative 33. Any other questions?